Good evening, and thanks for joining us. You're tuned into the lineup, coming to you live from the Athletic Sports Group studios in Louisville, Kentucky. Joining me this evening is Coach Tabor once again from Baseball Youth and Baseball BY Elite. So thanks for filling in again tonight, Tabor.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
And welcome back to our producer, Anthony Grassi.
He's finally back from assignment.
Yeah, back from assignment.
Back from assignment and with us in the studios, and we are forever grateful that you are here. Trust me. Tabor did a nice job filling in last week, but I don't want to do that again.
I can assure you I'm no Grassi.
No Grassi. All right, folks, we got a full slate of things to talk about this evening with you. Before we get started, we want to remind you that tonight we'll be doing our top plays for the month of April, which means that we can start taking the top plays for the month of May. You can submit those to the lineup at athletics.com. So get those submissions in, get them into us right away. It's never too early to get those in, and we enjoy seeing them here in the office. And we sit around and talk about them, and we got some good ones for you tonight. We got a top 10 that is full of defensive plays, some home runs, and mixture of both softball and baseball. So we got a pretty exciting top 10 for you coming up at the end of the show. Well, let's get started. As we do every week, we'll start with the recap from this past week. We've got a couple of teams we want to recognize for having outstanding weekends. The first one is a team that's been making some noise lately on the 11-year-old travel scene, and that's the unranked 11U East Cobb Astros Orange. They knocked off TBS number 7, M3 Elite, in the championship game 5-4 on their way to a perfect 4-0 weekend this past weekend down in Georgia. So congratulations to those guys. And the second team we want to talk about is a 13U 5-star national team, also from Georgia. They went 6-0, beat a very good MC Bulldogs team in the finals to wrap up their championship as well. So congratulations to both teams on a terrific weekend. The East Cobb Astros will be here in Kentucky for the TBS Nationals, so we'll look forward to seeing those guys as they look to improve and jump into the rankings throughout the year. Well, Tabor, I know that's all we can do is laugh, right? That's all we can do is laugh. So our next thing that we have adopted here at the lineup is our weekly recap from good old Jacob Degrom.
Just from this show, man, I've become a fan. Like, how can you not be in tune with what he's doing? Like,
well, you know what? That pleases me to hear you say that, because that's kind of what everyone, I think, has done. I've gotten a couple of text messages from people saying that now they're paying attention to DeGrom because of our show. They want to see, what he does, and you don't really pay attention until it happens. And it happened again this past week. So for those of you that aren't aware, Jacob Degrom had another outstanding outing this past week against the Boston Red Sox. Lost 1-0. He went 6 innings, gave up 3 hits, 1 run, 1 earned run, 1 walk, struck out 9, and lost 1-0.
I just don't understand it. Like, I just keep checking their scores, and periodically I see, again, like we talked about last week, 6-4, 5-3, 10-1, and then DeGrom gets on the mound, and it's like they just magically forget how to hit. I don't understand it.
So, I mean, now you want to see him when he pitches, right? What's going to happen today? How bad is he going to get the short end of the stick today? It can't keep happening, can it?
Honestly, at this rate, I mean, you're 2-2 with a no decision.
2-2, right?
2-2 with a no decision. Like, you drew the short stick twice. The no decision, all right, you got lucked up. Maybe should have had another loss, but at this point, I don't see any hope. But I'm pulling for him. But man, I don't know.
Well, we have adopted Jacob Degrom here at the show. We're going to give you weekly updates with him about him and his outings every week while the show is happening. Let me give you a couple more stats, Tabor. His ERA exploded after he lost 1-0. It exploded from 0.31 to 0.51.
At that point, you might have to move him from the 8th spot, I guess,
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what more the man can do. He gives up 1 run and his ERA explodes.
Yeah.
I say that tongue in cheek. His batting average, the opponent's batting average is 136.
And he's not giving up a lot of walks. So it really, like, I said it last week, man. Bob Gibson. This is what it reminds me of. Bob Gibson. I don't get it. It just, kid can sling it. He's doing his job. He's giving his team a chance to win, and they're just not having his back.
He's giving him a chance to win every time he takes the mound.
And that's all you can ask for of a pitcher. Give us a chance. Throw strikes. Your ERA is a half of a run a game.
As a coach, if your pitcher gives up one run, or your team, let's just take a little bit further. So some relievers came in and did their job as well too.
Correct.
So let's acknowledge those guys. Your team gives up one run. How many times out of 10 do you expect to win the game?
Every time.
10, right?
Yes, I tell my kids that all the time. Hey guys, one run don't win this ball game, but time and time again, we're seeing with the Mets that it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that it just boggles the mind. And, Grassi, can you put that back up on there again? I mean, just look at these numbers. And now, hang on. You've got guys, and I wish I would have looked this up. You've got guys that have a winning record, and their ERA is over 5. And they're 3-1, maybe even still 2-2 that he is. But Degrom, 6 innings, three hits. Unfortunate for him, one of the hits, I think was a home run, and so it went over the fence. So that was the one run he gave up. It forces him to be perfect, right?
But you can't be perfect in a game that's made to fail. That's what kills me with all of this, is that he is literally being as perfect as he can possibly be.
And here's one better. Well, I don't have it on screen, but so you guys just mentioned his ERA is .51, and his opponent's batting average is what? 136?
136, yeah.
Here's one even better. Jacob Degrom's batting average right now, take a guess at what it is.
Also, when he comes to the plate?
When he comes to the plate.
I'm taking 350.
No, not that high. I'm going to say by 225.
462.
462.
The kid's raking. Remember last week we talked about this. I said he has more RBIs than runs allowed at that point.
So he's hitting 462. I mean, which telling me his teammates aren't getting on in front of him.
No. At least not in home games anyways.
Right. I mean, that is mind-boggling that it continues. And listen, we all know Degrom won a Cy Young a few years ago with just a shade over a 500 record.
He's making a campaign for that again.
Exactly. That was going to be what I was going to say is, how do you not make him the front runner now?
He's got to be. He's got to be the front runner, because at some point you have to look at, all right, this guy's shoving. And I think, especially from you as a coach's point, you've been at that high level. That's your MVP.
Grassi, look up the pitching leaders for this year and let me know, who do we think's having a good year? Kershaw, he's having a good year.
Kershaw always, he's right up there.
Yeah, let's pull up Kershaw. Let's see what he is. And actually, this is going to be a good comparison because Kershaw has that potent offense in LA, right? I mean, he's got Mookie Betts and Bellinger, and I know Bellinger's
But
hurt.
the Dodgers aren't scared to spend that money to get him hitters. Can't be scared to spend the money.
Right, but you're gonna look and see kind of what the comparison is. Grassi, when you get that pulled up, let me know. And you got it pulled up? All right, what's Kershaw's line?
So Kershaw is 4-2 with a 2.09 ERA.
209.
He's given up 1.5 runs more a game and has 2 more wins.
2 more wins.
Sheesh.
Yeah, and the major league leader in wins is Jack Flaherty of the St. Louis Cardinals. 5-0 record, has a 3.41 ERA.
Shut up.
3.41.
5-0 with a 3.41.
Shout out St. Louis, though. I am a Cardinals fan, so I'm happy about that.
So put Degrom on the Cardinals,
I'm taking him every time.
and the Cy Young is over.
Yeah.
It's already over.
Yeah.
If he's on the Cardinals,
He's probably 6-0 right now.
he's probably 6-0.
Yeah.
So, man, I look forward to this show every week now because I want to see what happens with Degrom.
Same. I've literally been excited to hear about what we're going to say about Degrom today the whole day.
And, the one thing you can say about Degrom is the way he's pitching, he doesn't leave anything to chance, right? He's not leaving any calls up to the umpires. He's not leaving anything to chance, and he's taking care of business. He doesn't, doesn't want to, he handles his business. It's kind of like what you said. He handles his business. Well, speaking of leaving things up to the umpire, man, over the past week, we've had some instances with umpires that just want to make you shake your head. And there's 3 in particular. And before we get started on this, I don't want people to think that this show is going to be about bashing the umpires, because it's not. They have a thankless job. For the most part, they do a wonderful job. But unfortunately, in today's society, they're under a microscope, magnified 50 times now with all the different camera angles, high definition TVs. And so they have a difficult job. They for the most part, they do a good job. They never get credit for when they do a good job. I think, we talked about that earlier.
Yep.
Everybody's always eager to point out the bad in what they do, but they never get credit for the good.
It doesn't matter if they get 99 calls right. If that one call outshines the other 99, everybody's going to lose their mind.
Yeah, and that happens, but some calls seem to outshine more than others. And when they make me scratch my head, because I've been an umpire for 27 years, when these calls make me scratch my head, then there's probably some merit to it. Yeah. We talked about the play in the Philadelphia Phillies Atlanta Braves game a few Sunday nights ago, where after they had the replay, they still didn't change the call, and we couldn't understand that. But there's a couple more that took place this last week that was a big topic of conversation with everybody. Grassi, which one are you going to put up first? Conforto? So, Conforto, in a tie ball game in the bottom of the 9th, gets credited with a hit by pitch, and he sticks out his elbow. I mean, it's pretty clear and pretty plain to see that he sticks out his elbow to take the hit by pitch, forces in the winning run, ball game's over. And that's not the way that call is supposed to be handled. That if I'm umpiring, that's a dead ball strike. It's a strikeout. We're going to extra innings. As you can see in the video, and we don't have the video, we just got the still of it here, but the umpire actually originally calls a strike first for strike 3. And then he makes a signal that he was hit by the pitch. Nobody's doubting he wasn't hit by the pitch. He was, but he initiated the contact, and that's not supposed to be allowed. I'm not sure if this one went to replay or if it's even reviewable. I don't know if it is, but regardless, they didn't get this one right. They didn't get it right.
Yeah, but you're seeing it, especially more and more with the new technology of the Evo shields and all this stuff. People are getting more comfortable of hovering over that plate.
Sure.
So umpires are going to have to get more comfortable with being the bad guy and making that call, in my personal opinion.
Yeah. So that one was a little head scratching, but then we're going to go to the Phillies, Grassi. This is the one. Well, I would say this is the worst one I saw this week, but it's really not. Phillies game, and who was the runner? McCutchen?
McCutchen's on first going to second.
McCutchen's on first going to second. There's a ground ball to the second baseman. There's a shift going on, and we all know how much you love the shift.
Yep, I love it. Can't stand it.
And so there's a shift going on, and there's a field, the second baseman or the shortstop, I'm not sure because of the shift, but he makes the play. McCutchen runs from first to second base, and they miss him. They don't make the play. They throw it over to first base to record the out, but they end up calling McCutchen out, saying he's out of the baseline. And Grassi's going to put up a graph here. He's going to put up a picture of McCutchen's baseline path that he took.
Yeah.
He didn't leave the base path.
I mean, it's pretty cut in stone. I mean, when I first started umpiring, the first thing was, hey, the runner sets the line 3 feet approximately each side. I seen it, and I definitely don't think he was outside of his parameters there.
No, he wasn't. I mean, you can see the graph on screen. The base path, and again, technology, right, shows you the base path that McCutchen took. He doesn't deviate. And the rule says that you can't deviate from your base path to avoid a tag. Okay, I'll buy that. Great rule. He didn't deviate.
Just makes it easier on them to make the call, though. Be justified.
Well, that's what he's going to say.
Yep.
But here's the thing that I have a problem with. So I don't know if somebody got thrown out in this game or not, but they should have, right? They should have. And when
Harper got ejected after this, so they actually went to review the call, but they couldn't review McCutchen getting called out at second. They reviewed the play at first and called it a double play, which overturned it to call it a double play. Harper is livid in the dugout and has some choice words for the umpire and gets himself tossed.
Yeah, so here's my problem, right? So the umpire made a mistake, whether he thinks he did or not. So he tosses Harper. Now, I mean, if Harper is using some foul language or whatever, okay, I get that. But, what's the repercussion for the umpire being wrong?
I don't know. We see it time and time again, and this is honestly always a question of like, hey, even when these guys get it wrong, and and they're not going to go to replay. Like again, what does happen to them? And I ask you, like, what can happen to them? Like, what can we do?
Well, I think there's fines associated with getting ejected. So that's not fair to the player. He got ejected for the umpire being wrong. How is that right? I mean, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
I mean, so then do we come back and say if the umpire's wrong in the ejection process, then he pays the fine?
Well.
And that's what I'm saying. I think we walk a fine line of
just my initial reaction is yes.
Yep.
If the umpire wants to stick by his bad call only to come to find out that he was wrong in the end, should he pay a fine? My initial reaction is yes, but I don't think you're going to have umpires if you do that.
Yeah.
I think the umpires are going to say, you know what, that's not worth, you're paying me here for my judgment. But you know what, in their defense, I'll take it another step further, Tabor. And you see this all the time. A player doesn't agree with a strike ball call, whether it's strike 3, strike 2, whatever. And we can see, again, technology being at its best, we can see that was a strike according to the box and the pitch, all that stuff that they have.
Yep.
So if a player wants to make a jerk out of himself and make a scene over something that he thinks was a ball and it was really a strike, you know what? There needs to be a fine.
Yeah, but honestly, I've never enjoyed that the strike zone has been put up. I've never enjoyed that the box is there or whatever. Just
but
because
the everyday fan does.
I know they do, but the thing is every umpire's different. When I umpire, I'm not calling chest high. I'm going to call right under your breastplate. But I'm also going to go a little bit lower under your knees that I wouldn't typically, to make up for the height difference. And I just feel like every umpire's different. Some umpire don't like inside. They don't like this.
Well, you shouldn't alter the strike zone. The strike zone's a strike zone. I mean, listen, the old adage is we're not going to argue balls and strikes.
Correct.
And I'm fine with that. So, call the strike zone the way it should be called, and that will clear up a lot of these problems. But what you referenced to, the strike zone is letters to knees.
Yep.
But most umpires will not call that letter high pitch. They won't.
Yeah.
They won't. And if you do call it, the world comes to an end.
Every time.
Every time. So I think there needs to be some, I don't see penalties, that's kind of a harsh word, but there needs to be some accountability, both for an umpire and for a player. If a player wants to make a jerk of himself and show his backside up on an umpire on a supposedly bad strike call or bad, non-strike call, and if he's found out to be wrong, then he needs to pay a penalty or apologize to the umpire. And the same for the umpire. If he tells you that was a strike and he's going to argue with it that was a strike and you tell him, no, it's not a strike, is that really arguing balls and strikes with him? He's just telling you he don't think that's a strike. But I've seen umpires throw players out for that.
Yeah, but sometimes that goes back to the ego, though, that they can't be wrong. And that's just human. Humans as us, we don't like to be wrong. So whenever we're questioned, it instantly becomes defensive.
Yeah, but there's some umpires that have more of that power trip than others, in my opinion.
Yep. Oh, agreed.
They don't want to be talked to. And listen, it's not just a professional level. I mean,
no, it's all levels.
I run baseball tournaments. I've umpired every level from, small colleges down to rec ball. And I see it. I've worked with guys that have those types of egos, and they're tough to work with. I'll be honest with you. They're tough to work with. And for the most part, they're good umpires. Their personality is just not very good.
Yeah.
And, that goes a long way. But I going back, we're kind of getting sidetracked here. I just don't see how they call McCutchen out.
No.
And then there's no repercussion for the umpire. he still does his job. He can't get kicked out. Have you ever seen an umpire get kicked out of a game?
Right. But I mean, honestly, they have umpires on standby for injuries or whatever the case may be. If things get out of hand, they have the access and the tools to be able to pull him off.
But they're not going to do that.
And they're not.
But
But
I'm going to do that. But I mean, we've never seen an umpire kicked out of a game.
maybe they need to look into it.
Well, I mean, I guess if there was some way to kick an umpire out of a game, I don't know if Angel Hernandez would ever be on the field.
He probably gets scratched a lot.
He'd probably get kicked out before the game even took place. But, it kind of makes you wonder, why people like Angel Hernandez and even Joe West. Joe West needs to step aside. He's given a ton of great years as an umpire. And I feel that Joe is only hanging on now to be the umpire who's umpired the most games in the history of baseball. And that's not necessarily a good thing.
Yeah, no, once it's time to get out, you got to get out.
Whether you're a player or an umpire.
Correct. Yep.
Coach.
Because eventually you hit the point of you become complacent. You've done it for long enough, or you've done it enough times, it becomes complacency.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he needs to start training guys and, giving them, passing on the knowledge that he has. Or, here's an idea to have Joe become the full-time New York umpire. They rotate crews now, and I mean, just have Joe be the full-time guy.
Yeah, I mean, definitely makes sense in my mind.
Here's another thing that I thought about, and this is going to be a side note here. When they go to review plays, they tell New York what they have on the field. That's what they tell New York. And I wonder, is that such a good idea? Maybe just run the play to New York and say, what do you have?
Yeah, I definitely don't like that they have to tell them the call. Because again, like I've spoke about before, it becomes one of the umpire brotherhood.
Yeah, that's starting to go around. That's starting to get some legs, actually.
Yeah, I mean, the umpire brotherhood is a real thing, and I get it. Like, hey, you want to back your boys? It's no different than if me and you went to a baseball field. I'd hope you have my back the same way I have yours. But I'm with you. Send the play up. See what they say. If you're wrong, you're wrong. Put your ego to the side. And hey, I made a mistake. I'm human. Hey, that's what this review's for, man.
Yeah, it just appears, and I don't have the stats, but it appears like more and more calls are standing than being overturned. Again, that's just my perception of it. I don't know if it's true or not, but it seems like that's, and so now the conspiracy theory, and everybody loves a good conspiracy theory, is exactly what you just said, is people are, hey, this is the umpire's way of petitioning one day to get rid of instant replay. Is we're just going to stick with the call in the fields. And then if you don't think it's work, well, then get rid of it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is the review is necessary, though.
No, I agree.
I mean, in certain situations, certain angles, there's certain things that, us as fans see that they don't see because they're in one, they got one view. And they're trying to make the best call they can. And again, it's judgment. I got it. But I definitely think the review you got to have it.
Yeah, but even a few weeks ago, Grassi and I sat here and we talked about that Braves-Phillies game. There's no doubt in either one of our minds. This call's getting overturned. He's going to be out. He never touched the plate. Here it is 2 weeks later. Grassi, I don't think he still touched the plate, has he?
Not that I can tell.
So, that's when we lose faith. We lose conviction in what's going to happen is the right thing. It just happened again this past week. Another call that was clearly going to be called one way should have been overturned, and it wasn't. And the manager ended up getting ejected because the rule says once they replay it, if you come out and say anything, you're ejected. I mean, they just kind of taken that part of the game away from the managers. And that's tough.
Baseball's it's such an emotional game. I mean, there's so much failure. So that way, when you do get your success, I mean, there's just so much emotion from the manager, from the players, from everybody, fans, that, I mean, you're going to hear some boos, you're going to hear some cheers. Like, it's just part of it. It's one of the things it's the nature of the beast.
Well, this brings us to our last controversial call that happened in Major League Baseball this past week. And that was a day game between the Marlins and the Brewers. Is that right, Grassi? Marlins and the Brewers? Yep. And who was the pitcher and everything involved? You got that? Oh, okay. So basically what it was a little dribbler that went up the first baseline. The pitcher fields it, flips to first base. Runner's going to be out by 5 steps. Not even close. Matter of fact, the runner kind of lets up, stops running. He's going to realize he's going to be out. And lo and behold, the umpire, and you'll see it in the video, he decides that he's going to input himself in the game and call interference on the pitcher and give the batter first base. And everybody in baseball had a huge problem with this. Everybody except one group of people. Do you know who that group of people was that didn't have a problem with it?
I would assume the call that went for them.
Well, no, it's the umpires.
Oh.
The umpires. Because by rule, it was the right call to make. By rule. But at some point, common sense has to prevail. And I don't think that common sense prevailed here. And you'll see in the video that here's where the rules kind of conflict. The defensive player has a right to the ball over the runner. The runner has to avoid contact with a fielder making a play. In this video, the pitcher already made the play. Throws the ball to first base. Now the roles reverse. By rule, that defensive player has to get out of the way of the runner. And the rule says he doesn't have to touch him. He just has to cause him to deviate from his base path.
So he just checked up.
He just checked up. He checked up and actually kind of took one step to the side. He did take a small step to the right. And the umpire caught it, pointed to it right away, and called interference. Now, the interference goes away if the out is already made. If you slow it down, again, we're going to get back to technology. If you slow it down, the interference happens milliseconds before the out's recorded at first base, which is 7-8 feet away. So it's not like it was bang, bang.
Right.
7-8 feet away. It happens milliseconds before it happened. The umpire decides to make a name for himself, in my opinion. He wants to be part of the game, and he calls them safe.
Yeah, I don't get that stuff. I mean, I didn't personally see this particular instance. So just hearing about it and hearing that, I hate that he inserted himself because, like you said, common sense needs to take over. As an umpire, look, he's out. Nobody in this crowd's going to be mad about it. Nobody in the crowd's even thinking interference. And then, like you said, you just insert yourself.
Yeah, I don't understand. I mean, listen, I know all the purists out there go, well, listen to the rules. You can't change the rules. You can't change the rules. I think you might have opened yourself up, though, to more interpretation of the rules because the runner sets his baseline.
Yep.
And that running lane is only applicable for plays that are happening behind him so he doesn't get hit or doesn't interfere with the throw to first base.
Yep.
Based on what you just did there, you're telling the runner that if he bunts the ball anywhere in that no man's land between first and the pitcher's mound, right?
Yep.
He can, in theory, take off towards wherever the pitcher is going to field the ball and then make a line towards first base, and the pitcher is going to be in your base path. So I think they just kind of opened up a bad situation there. Common sense needed to prevail. Call the out, move on. Nobody would have said anything. Nobody would have known to say anything.
Yep. And then 75% of people are happy. Both fan bases, your everyday fan, but then the umpires are upset because of the rule.
Yeah, it's those two plays, the McCutcheon play and this play here is why umpires get a bad rap. And so you're talking about two plays, talking about two guys out of hundreds, out of thousands of plays. But like you said, you only remember the bad ones. And that's where I will stick up for my fellow umpires to say that's not really fair to them, that they get remembered for the bad ones and not the millions of good calls that they make. It's unfair business, but they get paid a lot of money. They get paid a lot of money to do that.
Yeah, at that point, you're at the pinnacle. You are at the best of the best. You've been through all these camps, and you're spot on, man. It breaks my heart because, like you said, it does give a lot of umpires. And this call will be talked about at the youth league level whenever another umpire makes a call who's just Joe Blow from the high school that teaches just wants to make a couple extra bucks.
Yeah, it's tough. Gosh, do we have a stat on what the umpires make? What is that?
I want to say a professional umpire makes around what, $250,000?
So it depends on obviously their experience. But I looked around and it's basically the rookies making somewhere in the neighborhood of, $125, $150. And a senior guy like a Joe West can make as much as $450,000 a year.
$450.
Is that including the postseason though, or just games? Period.
I think that's just games. I think regular season postseason is a different
I
thing.
think
I
that's
imagine
that's
it probably
extra.
goes on a per game per series rate that they
Yeah, I think that's extra.
collectively bargain or something like that.
Okay.
I think that's extra, but that's their full-time job. And I know some guys are like, well, the baseball season only lasts, 162 games. Well, that's not true. I mean, it is true, but these guys don't just show up day one and umpire and then stop on day 162.
No.
I mean, they put a lot of time and energy and effort into their craft. They read the rule book front to back. That's
They
why
gotta know it.
that's why the play that was made on the Marlins game was called, because he did know the rules. And listen, I'm not saying by rule it wasn't right. Technically, it was right. I just think it shouldn't have been called.
Yeah, we hear talking about, obviously the baseball season is very long, but there's a lot of other sports, NFL in particular. I mean, a lot of those referees have, a regular day job because they're only working 16, well, I guess now 17, Sundays a year.
Yeah, that's a good point. But they're pushing to change that though.
They
football.
have been. I
pushing to change
imagine
it.
for similar reason that
Sure.
a lot of these guys have other commitments, and it's probably also impacting, the rest of their lives. If, they blow a call on a Sunday, everybody's going to know who that.
Yeah.
Everybody knows who Ed Hockley is and his big
Yeah.
biceps.
And you know what? We talked about this earlier. 30 years ago,
This
the
would be talked
McCutcheon play and the Marlins play would not even be an issue, because 30 years ago, before social media happened, nobody knows about this play other than the people that were at the game.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, even 9 years ago, I think that when I graduated, like, social media still wasn't as big. I keep talking about it, but the Garza call, as big of a deal as that was, you may have seen it here or there on Twitter, and you've seen it on SportsCenter everywhere. But outside of that, it wasn't everywhere like some of these calls are now.
Well, yeah, but you also probably wouldn't have, because there's also, like, Major League Baseball up until fairly recently, if you were like a regular one of us and you figured out how to post the clip, like you recorded it on your TV and you posted it, that tweet's getting taken down immediately, no matter who you are.
Copyright?
Yeah, Major League Baseball made this shift a few years ago to, like, let regular people post, the highlights of games,
Oh, yeah.
so that because before everything had to come from Major League Baseball. Like, I don't even think the teams themselves could post the highlights. The Major League Baseball feed had to post the clip, and then the teams could reshare it. But it was all through this collective media front that Major League Baseball had.
Yeah, but still, the point is, we'll even say
My
10
point
years
being
ago.
that might not even be 10. It might be like 5.
No, it still gets spread around with social media quicker. I mean, 10, 15 years ago, I'm having a conversation with one of you guys, and you're like, hey, I was at the Marlins game, and you're not going to believe this call.
Yep. Word of mouth.
Word of mouth, right? And I'm going to look at you and go, that's not the way it happened. There's no way that's the way it happened.
Yep.
You're missing something.
But there's too many cameras on everybody now.
Nowadays, no, it is the way it happened. And guess what? That happened in the Marlins Brewer game at, I think it was a Tuesday at 1:00. People in Texas and Arizona and California knew about it at Tuesday at 1:01.
Yep.
And that's what gets blown up with a lot of these guys is the social media aspect of it. And it's not just major league games. It's high school games, college games, youth games, rec games. I mean, I see all the time on my feed, on my Facebook feed. I'm a member of a lot of groups and have a lot of people that post baseball related. I see it all the time, every Monday, Sunday. Take a look at this umpire's call for a strike 3. And you know what? It is egregious. It is bad. But you know what they failed to mention is there was a similar call the inning before that went in your favor, but you're not posting that one because it was in your favor. You're only posting the bad ones. So you got to take these with a grain of salt. You got to take these with the humility that you need to, and realize that these guys are just doing a job, whether it's a park and rec umpire, high school, college, professional, they're human.
Yep.
At the end of the day. And we're going to get into here in a little bit about the umpire shortage and why that is. But first, we're going to move on to a topic that is pretty popular in the youth world, and that is, what is the right age to throw a curveball?
To me, I've just always been a believer, and I know you're going to talk about it, but to me, up until I talked to you and heard that story, to me, it's when you can consistently locate your fastball, then let's properly teach you how to throw a curveball. So that way, then that becomes an out pitch. Because I feel like if you're not throwing your fastball for a strike, what are the odds that you're going to throw your breaking ball for a strike? And so I think it doesn't matter the age to me. If my 10-year-old nephew could fire a fastball in there 6 out of 10 times, all right, cool, let's teach you a curveball. If it takes him till he's 12, all right. If it takes him till he's 14, I just think you need to be consistently locate your fastball before you start throwing that breaking pitch.
And I think everybody's different.
Yep.
Everybody's different. Some people are 15, some people are 18, some people are 10, some people are 12. But at the end of the day, one thing matters, and that's the parents, what they decide. And ultimately, that's the decision that is made. Now, you referenced a story that I told you, and I shared this story with you a couple of weeks ago at one of our events.
Yep.
And it did kind of make you see things a little bit differently.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, let me share the story with you guys of what happened and what I shared with Tabor a few weeks back. We had this conversation. That's why it's a topic on the show tonight. A few years back in Michigan, I was coaching a team, and I sought out Jeff Zahn, who's considered one of the all-time California Angel great players of all time. He happens to live in Michigan. Him and I became friends, and I asked him to come work with my 11-year-old team in order to give them some pitching instructions. You know, I don't claim to be a pitcher. I didn't pitch in high school. I didn't pitch professionally. So having Jeff come in and work with these guys was a no-brainer in my opinion, and he was willing to do it, and I appreciated the fact. The first day we show up for our first lesson with Jeff, he pulls me aside and he says, "Hey, Rick," he says, "how many of your kids are throwing curveballs?" Well, I looked at him like he had 3 heads. And I'm like, "Jeff, my kids are only 11. And Jeff says, "Well, I know they're 11. How many of them throw curveballs?" And I says, "Well, none of us. We're only 11. And I said, "I don't believe in kids throwing curveballs at 11 or 10 or 9 or you know, what have you."
Right.
I said, "I plan on showing them next year when they're 12, teaching them next year." And he says, "Hey, Rick, you know what? You're the coach. I have, no problem. I'll respect you, whatever you do." I said, "Well, I appreciate that. Thank you." And I left that conversation thinking that, I just told a former major leaguer that I want my kids to learn how to throw a curveball, and he respected my wishes. So I was feeling pretty good.
Right.
We walk into the facility in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I had an indoor facility at the time. I was running a program called MSA Black. And before we start, he says, "Rick," he says, "do you mind if I talk to the kids first before we get started?" "Oh, no, absolutely. Go right ahead. Share your knowledge and wisdom with them. That's what I want from you." So I introduce Jeff to the players and the parents because I invited the parents to come in. I wanted them to witness this as well. And I introduced him to Jeff Zahn, and I explained to him he's one of the all-time greats California Angels players in the history of the Angels, and 14, 15-year major league career. I mean, this guy you're lucky that this guy is working with your kids. So I'm expecting Jeff to kind of introduce himself a little bit more than what I did, give him some more knowledge, but that's not what happened. The first thing out of Jeff's mouth is he looks at the players and goes, "How many of you guys are throwing a curveball right now?" Tabor, I had 12 kids there, and all 12 of them sat straight up. And they're darting their eyes back, looking to me, and they're looking at their parents. And Jeff steps in front of them and says, no. Don't look at your coach. Don't look at your mom and dad. Look at me. How many of you guys are throwing a curveball right now? Taylor, my jaw hit the floor when 12 kids raised their hand, including my son. 12 of them raised their hand. And I'm like, what in the heck is going on? So he calls on one of the boys and he says, who showed you how to throw a curveball? And he says, well, my neighbor did. Jeff says, well, how old's your neighbor? He says, he's probably 13, 14 years old. So Jeff says, oh, and he's being sarcastic. He says, oh, he's not a Major League Baseball player or coach? And, I know he's being sarcastic, but the little kid looks up and he goes, no, sir, he's 14 or 15, 13 or 14 years old.
Right.
So he looks over to the next kid and he goes, who showed you how to throw a curveball? And he says, my older brother. And he said, well, how old's your older brother? Does he play Major League Baseball? And he says, no, sir, he's 16 years old. And he says, well, what did he show you to do? He goes, well, and he holds up his arm and he gives me this twisting motion. And he says, if I throw the ball and do this with my arm, then the ball's going to curve. Jeff turns around and looks at me and just gives me a blank stare. And I knew right then and there what his point was. And for those of you that still might not get the point, let me share it with you. And the fact is, if we don't show these young men the right way to throw a curveball, then somebody is going to show them the wrong way.
Yeah, I mean, you think back to the playground when you was at school, man, or when you played wiffle ball with your buddies, like you're trying to find the out pitch or you're trying to figure something out. So you end up just naturally, I mean, and you hear curveball thrown around baseball fields so much that you're just naturally drawn to it, man. I want to be able to throw a nasty curveball.
So that day, my philosophy on curveballs with young players changed. It changed my mind. I'm all about now teaching these kids, showing them the proper way to throw a curveball. And like Jeff told me that day, he says, Rick, you're the coach and the parents are the parents. It's up to you guys whether they go out in a game situation and do it. Nothing says they have to do it, but we need to show these young men the right way. So when some Yahoo tries to show them the wrong way, they're smart enough, they're informed enough, they're intelligent enough to say, hey, that's not right. That's going to hurt my arm. So I'm a big believer in doing it. So as far as an age goes, there's not really, to me, it's different for everybody. Yep. But I think we should educate these young players, educate them properly and show them how to use it. And whether you're using the game, it's entirely up to you.
Yep. And honestly, I just want to, let everybody know that what I had stated before was before, Rick taught me or, informed me of what this pitcher had told him. And when he said that, man, I just felt bad because I was just thinking like, gosh, I have coached so many 10 and 11-year-old kids that, now their arms are blown out. Like, could it have been different if I had just showed them how to throw a curveball the proper way? Is their arm not done when they're 17? Is their arm not done when they're 18? Like,
it resonates, right?
It does. It sits with you. And guys, show them how to throw it. And I'm with Rick. If you don't use it in the game, it is what it is. But guys, freaking teach them. That story is stuck with me. And I've probably told 30 more coaches about this story. Yeah. Because it does. If you're really in this for the kids and you really love these kids, like you say you do, this is just a no-brainer. It's a no freaking brainer.
Yeah, and I've shared that story with many of people over the course of my lifetime in the last, that's been 16 years ago. And I've shared it with many people, and a lot of people have taken that. It resonates with them. They're like, you know what? It still doesn't mean I'm going to throw it in the game. And I'm like, that's fine. You don't have to. Yeah. I never, personally, this is the way I coached, I never threw a curveball. When I was coaching my teams, never threw a curveball till they were 12. Yep. I let them throw it at 12 only if they could prove to me they threw it the right way. Yep. And then I took and limited it to, you get 2 curveballs per inning, and that's what you get. Yep. I don't want to hear, it slipped, or I missed the sign, I didn't get it. Well, I called it, you didn't throw it. That's 1 down, you got 1 to go. Yep. I never let my 11-year-olds, my 10-year-olds, my 9-year-olds throw them. I didn't. It's a personal preference. I know there's a lot of coaches. I see it in my national event. I see it in weekend events all the time. 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old kids throwing curveballs. You know what? That's between the coach and the parent. I'm not. What's that?
My favorite is the new term for it, the tumbler. I'm sure you've heard this.
There's been, in my time, Tabor, I've heard the football, the knuckle curve, the tumbler. I mean, I've heard all different kind of justifications for it. Yeah. And basically that's what they're doing. They're justifying it. Exactly. I'd love to hear some comments from our listeners on their thoughts on the curveball and the right way and the wrong way. And if my story did resonate with you, if you do have a different outlook and a different approach on it, and, show them the right way, and hopefully they're smart enough to take that knowledge with them as they get older and become, more seasoned pitcher. Yeah. I lived on the change up at 9, 10, and 11.
I love the change up.
Yeah. And, is that a tough pitch to throw? It is. People say, well, the change up hurts your arm too because you got to pronate. Well, at the younger ages, you can teach them to change speeds without pronating. To me, I saved that for when they got older. The body was a little bit more developed. And
but
I didn't worry about that. I didn't worry about the change in speeds.
I would say, but people that are saying that, I mean, they're not understanding that the goal of the changeup, especially at that age, is just to get them on their front foot. We're not trying to have a ball drop off. We're not trying to get them to drop off the table. I don't expect no 9-year-old to throw a circle changeup and it just fall off. Just change up the speed a little bit.
Listen, you can worry about technique and form. That's what the offseason's for. I'm going to tell you right now, if you got a 9 or a 10-year-old pitcher on the mound, and I don't care if he lobs it in, it's a change of speed.
Yep.
At that age, it does mess up the hitter. You know what? Then work on your craft. Whether you're 9 or whether you're 19, work on your craft. And in the off season and in practice, work on the arm speed looking the same as the fastball and everything else, and you'll go further.
Yep, I agree.
But I see a lot of, or I hear a lot of stories. I mean, I'm sure you hear it all too. Coaches throwing too many curveballs at 9, 10, 11, 12.
Yeah. Honestly, even 13. I mean, you were out there for that Versus event. Yeah, I had a big 13U team out. I did. They were huge.
That's big boys.
They were big. But those boys probably saw 50% curveballs, and I'm just sitting here thinking it meant more to you to win and throw half of your pitches for curveballs than to us just see what happens. Because they're 13. They're kids.
Yeah, it's baffling. Not everybody has the same philosophy. And you know what? I think some of it's not so much that they're doing it on purpose. I just don't think the coaches are knowledgeable.
Yeah, that could be it too.
I don't think they realize the ramifications that they have or what they're doing. Yeah. Because there's so many guys now, that are coaching. Everybody's got a team.
And if you don't like that team, you go start your own team.
Yeah, and there's just thousands and thousands. So there's bound to be, some coaches that kind of get sidetracked. So, yeah. Well, let us know what you think on the curveball in the comments below. If there's an age for it, if you teach it, if you don't teach it, and why. What's your reasoning behind it? We're going to skip number 3 for now. We're going to run short of time, so we're going to skip number 3 for now. We're going to move on to the umpire shortage. It is a real thing that is going on across the country right now. It's in all sports. Yep. We talked about some major league umpires earlier about how they made some bad calls that's magnified 100 times because of social media, cameras, replays, whatnot. But there's an umpire shortage going on across the country. And quite frankly, the reasoning for the umpire shortage, in my opinion, is how, because how coaches, parents, and spectators act towards the umpires and players. I told you earlier in the show that I see a lot of calls or videos from calls that are bad. I'm not disagreeing that they're bad, but you're talking about a amateur baseball game. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, whatever the ages may be. It's an amateur baseball game. And for these people, whether it's coaches, parents, grandparents, spectators, players. I've seen some players even post some videos that just talk bad about the umpires. So why would you do it?
I don't know. I know that, the programs I've ran or teams I've been a part of, I've challenged my parents to one thing. Be a parent. Be supportive. Cheer your kid on. If you don't like a call, okay, you can boo about it for a second, but we got to move on. Now, I understand.
Well, let me stop you right there. That's not the problem.
Yep.
You're allowed to be unhappy.
Correct. But
You're
they
allowed
take
to
it
be
too
unhappy.
far.
They take it too far.
Every time. And that's what I'm saying. The thing is as umpires, and I just umpired this Sunday. The thing is you got, put it in perspective, everybody's eyes are on you. What call did you make? You're only going to make 50% of the people happy. Get it? But as fan, here's the thing. Your coach should be good enough that he's sticking up for your kids in the right manner. Talk to them as adults. When the fans lose their mind, then the coach is losing his mind. Well, then that trickles down to guess who? The players. And then when you have 3 sets of people screaming and yelling at an umpire, he's thinking, I'm getting paid $50 to be here.
$50.
I'm getting paid $50. This is a part-time job. I'm just trying to put some extra food on the table, or I'm trying to buy my kids a nice Christmas gift this year. And we are going at him like he is Joe West.
The personal attacks is what gets me
Every time.
Listen, if you want to be unhappy, about a call, that's your right. You can be unhappy. Hey, come on, Blue, I think you missed that one. That was outside, or that was up. Yep. Nobody has a problem with that. But when you start getting personal,
yeah,
you suck, or you're trying to get out of here early.
Yep.
Those. Come on, guys don't want to hear that.
Yeah. Well, just a quick story, from this past weekend, man. Like, the guy before had two games behind the plate. So then I have the third. I'm going to change for my third game. Go put on my legs, put on everything. And 4 parents follow me to my car. Do you even know anything about baseball? Are you sure you're qualified? And I go to, I'm not paying them no attention, but I go to pull my stuff out. And 4 or 5 BY hats fall on the ground. Well, what are you doing with BY? And I'm like, well, sir, I'm the recruiting coordinator for BY. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Our kids are so, and the tune changed real quick when they realized, granted who I was, but in the moment they were like gonna bash me until they realized at the end of the day, they wanted their kid to play in our event.
You bring up a great point that you had to go to your car and change.
Yep.
And I try my best at my tournaments to separate my umpires from the general parking lot. Yep. I don't want that to happen because of what you just said. These parents will follow you out to your car. Yep. Coaches will follow you out to your car. And just like you got verbally assaulted out there about, you don't know what you're doing. Should you be out here? Are you even qualified? That's unacceptable. And this is why there's an umpire shortage. Because these people go out there, and we've all seen videos and clips of umpires that get punched, referees that get punched, and you don't know what these people are going to do. And so to me, when I run events, I try to designate a place for the umpires to go and to get away from everything. And I encourage all tournament directors out there to make sure that your umpires are safe first and foremost.
But at a rec league on a Sunday, man, like that, it
doesn't matter.
No, I agree with what you're saying, but
matter.
That is baffling in the sense of where have we went wrong?
So you have these young umpires out there that are considering becoming umpires. And I can tell you this was when I was in Michigan a few years ago when I was umpiring, and I can only speak to this factor. So that was probably 6 years ago. The average age of an umpire in Michigan at that time was 56, 57 years old. So that tells me 2 things. One, those guys are experienced and been around long enough to handle certain situations. They're probably pretty good at diffusing situations. Younger kids aren't. They haven't had that experience or have that training on how to diffuse a situation. And secondly, they're not going to give themselves time to do it. They're just going to quit. And we can't afford to have the umpires quit, the younger ones. We need the younger ones to replace the older ones.
Well, it starts at the rec level, man. It starts whenever those young kids are going out there and doing T-ball or starts to do machine pitch, and they start hearing the little chirple. Then maybe the next year they get moved up to kid pitch, and then it starts getting even worse. And they're like, man, is this $40 worth it? Because that's probably what they're making. $40.
Yeah, those rec games don't pay nearly as much as summer travel.
That's why, even in Louisville right now for high schools, they're having to cancel JV and freshman games just to make varsity games go because of this shortage. Now, granted, some of that is because of COVID, but, I mean, you've lost a lot of umpires.
When I got into umpiring, again, 27 years ago, how old are you, Tabor?
Going to be 27.
Oh, my goodness. Oh my goodness!
So 94 is when you started umpiring.
Oh well, I've been retired for a couple of years. So I started in '92.
Okay, so 2 years before I was thought of. Got it.
Oh, well, that just made me feel old. But back when I got into umpiring, I had to wait 5-6 years before I did a varsity game.
Yep.
I spent my time in, junior high, freshman, JV. You got moved up. It's no different than players. As an umpire, you got moved up. That's not the case nowadays because the numbers are so low. You got guys coming right out of training going, well, we got to put you on a varsity game because we don't have umpires.
And the thing is it's easier, and I know a lot of people don't see it this way, but it's easier to stick a brand new guy on two good teams. And I know people don't like hearing that, but in my opinion, it's always been easier to stick them with the better teams because at that point you're talking about zones and handling different situations. And I'm with you, man. If we don't change what we're doing as coaches or fans, it's not going to get any better.
It's not going to get any better. And recruiting these younger guys, it gets harder and harder every day because there's more things for them to do. But we've got a video of someone that should be recruited. And Grassi's going to put this up on the screen right now. This guy right here, I want you to check this out. This is amazing. I think this is the best thing ever. And if you're an umpire looking to recruit some people, you need to get this kid's number right here. Look at this. This is crazy. That is great form. Yeah, look at that. And you know what? He looks the part, right? He looks the part. He's got it.
But looking the part is half the battle too, though, because what I've experienced is most of the time that those umpires get it is they're the ones that are showing up with their pants all wrinkly and their shirts are untucked.
Yeah,
looking the part is half the battle, man.
We got a message here on Facebook from Alicia, and she says, do you think replay for umpires help? I guess I don't your question. You're talking about overall replay for Major League Baseball, and if that's what you're getting at, I do think it helps. I think it helps with those guys making the right call because at the end of the day, everybody agrees we want to get the call right. So I think instant replay does help the umpires if it's used properly, but we've already talked about on the show where a couple of times it wasn't used properly.
But again, could it
didn't work?
The umpire brotherhood.
Yeah, we talked about that. The umpire brotherhood. The pay scale for the umpires is bad. We talked about a major league umpire making $250,000, and a good amateur umpire, he might make $30,000 a year, and he's traveling a lot more than those major league guys are, and he has another full-time job as well too. Yeah. So, we got to give these guys a break. There are not going to be any umpires left. We're running them all off. Parents, coaches, everybody kind of needs to do their part and help in with all of this. Because if not, you don't have a game.
Yeah.
You don't have umpire, you don't have a game.
The pay scale could solve a lot. I mean, it honestly could, because that's why we're seeing all these high school guys go to TravelBall, because they can go make the same amount of money in one game and do multiple throughout a day versus just showing up and doing one game that night.
Paul McKean just commented, the game hasn't changed, the technology has. And that's 100% correct.
Agreed.
That is a very powerful statement. The game hasn't changed. The ability to point out inefficiencies is what's changed the game, and it's changed it for the worse.
Yeah, because that's what's been so beautiful about baseball or softball is, as much as it stinks when it goes against you, the human error and the human judgment, like that's what's been so pure about the game.
Well, you talked about earlier about how the when you get criticized, you become defensive.
Yep.
And older guys like me, in 27 years, I had one ejection in 27 years. One. Because I learned how to tune some things out, not let some things bother me. As you get older, you get thicker skin. And quite frankly, you just don't give a crap no more.
Yep.
What he says or what you think about me. But if you're an impressionable 18, 19, 20-year-old kid trying to get into umpiring, you're impressionable.
Yep.
And I can tell you, when I got started in the game, if somebody told me I sucked,
I took it personal.
I took it personal.
Yep.
I didn't sleep at night.
Yeah. What could I have done better? How could I have pleased these people?
When I was a 45-year-old umpire, I slept like a baby.
Yeah.
I'm just going to tell you, I did.
Yeah.
It didn't bother me. Yeah. But that's 20 years of growing thick skin.
Yeah. And honestly, you know, this generation, they don't handle criticism well. So, I mean, we have to understand, like you said, man, like we got to get these umpires in. We got to get them seasoned so that way they can become the 45-year-old that sleeps at night, and you can kind of give them a little chirping because they can handle it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely they can. But, you know, all the parents, the coaches, the players, I mean, you guys got to give these guys a break, because without them, you don't have a game. Yep. And you don't want to be like the local JV and freshman teams here who look forward to playing their game all day, only to be told at the end of the day, we have to cancel because there's no umpires.
And there's nothing worse than looking at a kid saying, you can't play your game because we don't have an umpire.
We don't have umpires. And this is a national problem. Yeah. This is a national problem. I'm going to give a shout out to some friends of mine at the United Umpire Association. Those guys do an absolute wonderful job with what they do with their umpires. They've actually got a recruiting process going on now for younger umpires to try to get them in. They're training them as we speak. And Alex and Todd and Derek and those guys over there do a wonderful job with those guys. And I wish more people took it seriously as they did to help these young guys get into the game. They're going to partner them with senior umpires to kind of help them and tutor them and basically explain to them how to handle some of these situations. Because part of the problem is there's no training for that. Yep. These umpires get their gear and they just get basically thrown to the wolves. Yep. And it's a bad situation. It's a recipe for disaster, and these guys are going to stop. Yeah. They're going to stop doing it.
Yeah, the thing for me is you know, I was one of those crazy loud coaches and got wild and got rowdy, and so I just challenge you coaches out there that you know, if you are a little more vocal, get into umpiring, see what it feels like to be that guy, see what it feels like whenever you're the one taking it, and see how much you can handle, man. That's the biggest thing. Coaches, get out there and help.
And listen, we're not telling you to sit on your hands and not
at all
voice your opinion. There's just a right way and a wrong way to do it.
Everything. There's a right way and a wrong way.
There's a right way and a wrong way. And you do it the wrong way, and it's just a bad.
It's a trickle down effect.
Yeah.
You get mad, then the parents are going to get mad, and again, then the players get mad, then we lose umpires.
And then you lose umpires. And it's going to come to the day to where you're not going to be able to play the game without them. So help us out. Do the right thing. Treat your umpires with respect. And I understand that there's bad ones out there and good ones, but you know, you take the good with the bad, and you move forward and you move on, and you know, just help us out, not just us here at Athletics, but across the country. You know, help us out and get those umpires back out on the field where they belong. All right, well, man, look at the time. Again, another show that has flown by.
We're pretty good at this.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully the people enjoy what we talk about and they learn a little bit of things that they can talk about and share with their teams. But now we're going to get into what we've been getting into, what we've been waiting for the whole month. That's our top 10 plays of the month. And we're going to get that rolling. Grassi, you want to get that rolling? All right, let's go. All right, starting off at number 10, we have 11U Landon Catherine, who hammers this pitch to deep left field and over the scoreboard for a 2-run home run. At number 9, this is Hunter Kennedy from the 10U Outlaws out of Florida. He lays out for an outstanding grab and then doubles off the runner at second base. Outstanding play. Number 8, this is 10U Morgan Cheeks who hops out of the box to snag the bunt attempt and to fire to first base. And after a moment, she gets the call from the umpire for a double play. Great heads up by that young lady to get the team off the field.
It's a little like that Florida State play.
Number 7, watch this throw from center fielder Bren Davis to catcher Lana Hendricks to nail the runner trying to score from second at the plate. Right there. I have to admit, when I first watched it, I thought she was safe. But you'll see right here, she gets her right on the shoulder. Number 6, watch the dive by the second baseman and then the throw from her knees to retire the runner. That's a nice play right there. Number 5, here's something you don't see every day. A home run by Anderson Adams, who gets sniped by his own bat as he heads towards first. He's hoping no one saw that, but it's on video for life. Thanks to Mom.
What a barrel roll kid.
Number 4. Oh, here we go. Number 4. Here's a hot shot to the outfielder that the center fielder grabs for the third out. Watch as he lays out to make the catch. Now, I want you to pay attention to the catcher with his reaction. Right here. Let's go. All right. Coming in at number 3. This next video is a walk-off hit in the bottom of the 6th by Gavin Sumter. Watch head coach Michael Jacobs' reaction as he races home with his players to celebrate the win. We need more of that excitement. Here comes Michael right here. Easy, Mike. Don't pull a hamstring. Number 2. Here's one of the best diving catches, defensive plays you will ever see this year. This pitcher goes all out and makes an incredible diving catch to the end of the inning, and he casually flips the ball back to the mound. And here's number 1. This is as good as number 2 was. This one's better. Leica Kapling sacrifices her body to make the remarkable catch for SY Elite in Arizona last weekend.
Okay.
Watch as she anticipates the bunt and then comes out of nowhere to make the grab.
So there's the literal Florida State play again.
Unbelievable. So congratulations to those 10 plays for our top 10 plays of April. We appreciate everyone's submissions. And reminder that we are taking submissions for the month of May. You can email those to the lineup at athletics.com. And going back to, what is that? The vaccine update. Oh, you got an update for us for the vaccine? Oh yeah, give us an update. This is for the Cooperstown thing, right?
Yeah, so this literally just came out. Where did I go? So it's up on screen now. This was published like 10 minutes ago. The FDA is expected to authorize the Pfizer vaccine for kids 12 to 15 by next week, setting up shots for many before the beginning of the school year. So obviously we had a whole episode dedicated to how
for Cooperstown.
Yes. I don't know. Obviously the authorization is, step 1. But as far as when, I guess that still leaves it up in the air as far as when, appointments will be able to be made when, people will start getting shots in the arms. But
I still don't think majority of the families are going to have their 12-year-old get a vaccine. I just don't see it.
Okay, like we talked about, this was, I guess, the first step in a very long process of that event.
They had to have somebody know that on the inside that knew. They had to.
I mean, listen, I'm a dad. I got 3 kids. I wouldn't have my 12-year-old take a vaccine. There's no way. Not this early. He's
definitely not going to be the guinea pig.
Right. He's not going to be the guinea pig. But well, thanks for the update. That's good to know that they're moving in the right direction. But when that direction gets going that way, just let me know how it goes, and we'll go from there. Well, that's all for tonight. I want to thank everybody for joining us. I want to thank my producer Anthony Grassi and my co-host tonight, Tabor, Coach Tabor.
Thanks for having me.
And hopefully we got some things out there to everybody tonight that will help them in the future. I want to give you guys a reminder that to email any future plays to the lineup at athletics.com. And once again, thanks to everyone for tuning in tonight, and we'll see you next week right here on the lineup.